Everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sports. I'm about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game that I can only presume must feel like the continuation of a nightmare for the Winnipeg Jets. A game in which they took on one of the top three teams in the NHL, and never mind the idea of, holding your own against a team like that. Went through the entirety of that game looking, I thought, like the better team. Getting hard to understand in some of these situations here. Like, we talk about the last game that they played against the Utah Mammoth, and clearly the first period was, a little bit of a throw that one away. And if you're trying to find the reasons why the Winnipeg Jets, are not coming away with the full victories, we'll break it down. There's some decisions that were made here and there, but I'm going to go in a little bit of a weird direction with this one. Hear me out on this, okay? And let's hop into our Toyota and take the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive and have a little conversation about this one, because this one is, Rennie's got some out there things. This one is kind of way out there. And one of my way out there takes from last year that I think was absolutely, was it way out there? Yes. Was it like explainable? Not at all. Was it, something that could be, basically definable? I guess there'd be some stats out there that would talk about puck luck and things like that. Sure. But Renny was the guy who talked over and over and over again last year about the Winnipeg Jets and the way that the hockey gods smiled down on the Winnipeg Jets. And if you just think of what it feels like right now to be a Winnipeg Jets fan compared to what it felt like to be a Winnipeg Jets fan last year. Like, I talked about the feeling of inevitability that the Winnipeg Jets had last year. Yeah, a lot of that had to do with the idea that, the Winnipeg Jets did the right things over and over and over again, and they would eventually come ahead or come out with the win. But I think a lot of that had to do with last year, where it just seemed like every single bounce went in the Winnipeg Jets direction. And I talked about this. There were very few bad bounces that went the Winnipeg Jets way last year. And there was bounce after bounce after bounce. And we would talk about, the Jets putting teams into defensive posturing, so getting good bounces off them. And, you think about the playoffs outside of the Nemestikov second goal before the Manitoba Miracle and the fan shot by Nikolai Ehlers. But even earlier in the series, there's a goal that's scored where it's a pass over to Mark Scheifele, or Mark Scheifele tries to pass the shot across, and it goes off the defenseman's skate and into the back of the net. Like, those were commonplace last year. And I know that I talked about it a lot, and I know that there's probably a good segment of the Jets population who hated that I talked about that, because it would suggest that there was an element of luck that made the Winnipeg Jets what they were last year. And you wanted me to be giving full credit and saying, no, they deserved everything that had happened. But then they did deserve a lot of the bounces they got last year. But sometimes it just seemed, and I talked about it, like the hockey gods smiled on the Winnipeg Jets. What stands out to me, and this is kind of fascinating, it's funny because a little peek behind the scenes of the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast, I had a story queued up that was ready to go, and it was about 1-goal games. The Winnipeg Jets, before this last game, had played 4 games that were 1-goal games. And unlike last year, they just always seem to come out on top of it. We'll have a stat because we'll probably run this in the next game, but the Winnipeg Jets were something ridiculous, like 18-4-4 in 1-goal games last year. They've already lost 11 1-goal games this year. So they are far ahead, 35, 36 games into the season now, ahead of the amount of losses they had in 1-goal games last year. And I asked, before the game, Scott Arniel about this and about the idea of how the Winnipeg Jets last year just so often turned that razor's edge game into a victory versus this year where they're turning those razor's edge games into losses. And one of the things that he had said was, you know what? It just felt like every single bounce went our way last year. So what Renny was feeling, the Winnipeg Jets felt it too. And his response this time around was, it feels like everything just went our way last year. And it just feels like everything's going in the exact opposite direction. And it just was such massive foreshadowing for this game, because this is a conversation I have with Scott Arniel, in the morning at around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning when we have this conversation. Then all this time later, I'll give you another peek behind the scenes. I'm standing, you see where the Jets bench is, and there's that little tunnel that they go in behind. I'm standing down that tunnel just off to the side, so if a camera was looking down there, they wouldn't be able to see me. And there's a TV monitor, and I'm getting ready to interview Mark Scheifele about his 2-point game and the Winnipeg Jets getting to this game that is like very much what they looked like last year, and how they held the lead the way that they did last year. And I'm sitting there in that moment. The Minnesota Wild tie that game up. And the sequence of events that leads to them tying it up is just another thing. The Winnipeg Jets, we'll talk about it, did not feel that they were, properly handled by the refs in this. We're going to have clearly a whole bunch of people talking about it in the room. In the chat room, Scott Arniel, not at all happy about the situation. It's just another one of these things that leads to an unlikely tying of this game. And then in overtime, where I think for years the Winnipeg Jets, outside of that 1 year, had been dominant, somehow find a way to be on the wrong side of this all over again. It's fascinating to me, honestly, because listen, you've heard my take on a lot of these things. You've heard my take on the roster and its ability to continually play the kind of hockey that it's trying to take. I'm by no means saying that this is just a fluke out, that the Winnipeg Jets find themselves where they are in the standings is earned. But what I find fascinating is as they try to dig their way out of this, it feels to me like the very forces that made them near impenetrable last year are working against them to make them feel, hopeless in a lot of situations at the beginning of this year. That's not analysis. That's a feeling. That's me just throwing that out there. But I got to say, I went with the whole thing last year about the hockey gods. I was right down until one of the biggest moments in the Winnipeg Jets history. I'm getting that same feeling in the opposite direction here. That for me is the opening drive, the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. And hey, not a lot of time, folks. This December, it's time to Toyota, Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Lease the 2025 Tacoma 4x4 SR5 truck from just $116 weekly for 64 months at 6.59% with $7,699 down and a $1,500 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 31st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. There's going to be a lot of things that we can touch on here. Depth scoring, the decision made at the end of the game, which I keep hearing about for Jonathan Toews not being on to take that draw. There's lots for us to talk about. But as it stands right now, Renny's analysis is just like the hockey gods have turned on the Winnipeg Jets. What the heck can you do about it? Let's see if Kenny can offer a little bit more than curses and voodoo. Let's bring him in, folks. Man with the best music in the business. Here he comes. Renny, my friend, good to see you in the house here. Great tie, great suit. You got it going on. Hey, I'm debuting. I am debuting a piece. I don't know how many people can pick up on this, but it's Vittorio Rossi. It's brand new. Frankie and the boys did me up right. Got the lilac colored shirt. Got the blue with a little bit of like burgundy, purplish pinstripe in. Not sure if you can pick it up, but the burgundy tie. Man, oh man, Christmas came early for Renny, and it continues to be Christmas all year round as long as you're wearing Vittorio Rossi gear out there. So if you want to feel like it's Christmas, absolutely every single day of the year. You know what to do. Head on over to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they'll do their best Saint Nick impression and have you walking out of there feeling like it tis the season to be merry. 365 days a year. Ken, boy, oh boy, what happened in that one?
Yeah, fun game. First game out of the break. Usually some discombobulation for both teams. Usually for the team that travels, trouble having passes connected. I think they were 1-1 in shots 8 minutes into the game or so, but became an entertaining game. I mean, the Jets would have a lot to be happy about in that one, other than the result. But again, it's tough to be feeling good about games that don't end in wins for them right now. So. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to say it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm more of a make your own breaks kind of person rather than hockey gods taking care of most of the things. I think, you got to play the game. And I know you're not saying you don't, but I've always been more of a determined on the ice kind of person. But again, there's an element of making your own breaks, but there's also a crazy element of luck in hockey as well. So whether you want to call it creating your own luck or, maybe there's some version of the hockey gods out there, sure, but yeah, I mean it's so interesting, Sean, right? I mean, you were there in the morning, same as I was. We heard Josh Morrissey talk about leaving the first 35 games in the rearview mirror, and for 59 minutes and change, the Jets did that. But much like in the same manner they have been able to, last year they snuffed, they put that game away, but today they were unable to do so. I mean, they I wouldn't say they reverted to their old ways or anything, but the thing that had been plaguing them, was there again. I mean, in a year like last year, bounces or not, they close that game out. Shot goes off the post, save is made, clear is made, empty net is hit, trailer is picked up, all of those things. One timer goes in. But that just isn't happening for the Jets right now. So it's easy to see there has been frustration mounting. And I mean, you touched on it for sure. Jets are doing certain things that make them, susceptible, but also make them, give them hope that, and the belief that Jonathan Taves talked about in his post game, and Josh Morrissey in the morning, and Kyle Connor as well. I mean, this is a group that knows how to play, and when they play that style of game, they are very difficult to beat, but they don't do it for long enough or off as often as they have. And then too, I mean, again, first game out of the break, we get it. You've been off the ice, all those things. But I mean, the Gus Nyquist play, it encapsulates what the season has been like for the Jets. For a guy that has been struggling offensively, basically goes end to end in this situation, picks up the puck in the D zone, explodes through the neutral zone, shimmies and shakes his way past Quinn Hughes, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and still has to beat Wallstead. And he did, but the goal does not stay on the board because of a play that again, Nino Niederreiter, I'm going to just put it simply, he obviously wasn't trying to be offside. But Sean, I mean, we talk about controlling the controllables all the time. You can't go offside there. And it's not that he went offside because Nyquist made an extra move. Niederreiter was already standing in the offensive zone. He just kind of lost track of where he was. So, again, I'm not here pointing fingers at Nino Niederreiter, but guy's been in the league for more than 1,000 games. That's a play that you have control over, and you can't afford to make that play in that situation. And again, I'm not saying that's why the Jets lost, but those are things they didn't do last year. And again, we can get into the debate about the penalty or not and the non-call versus the call. But again, last year, the Jets aren't taking a cross-checking minor in the last 30 seconds of a game that they need. And again, I'm not blaming Dylan DeMello. You understand what's happening in the sequence of events. But the thing is, Sean, the play was already over, essentially. Puck was already out of the zone by the time, Eric Sinek. And Sean, you know my feelings about Eric Sinek. I think he's one of the best defensive centers in the league. I mean, it was definitely a push or cross-check on the back. No one can say it wasn't. But Joel Eriksson Ek is a big and strong guy, and he doesn't necessarily go down to the ground that easily very often. But got the penalty call when you needed it, and this team cashed in. So again, we both have thoughts about. Again, I'm not saying it was a dive, but I do think he went. I've seen him battle a lot in front, and I didn't really see a lot of battle in that scenario. But hey, these things happen. But all in all, Jets can feel some goodness out of that, but it's another, in this situation, it's a point lost. If you have a lead in the last 30 seconds and you don't close it out, that's a point lost at a time where the Jets can't afford to be losing points. So, lots of things that they'll be happy about, but, it's a 4-point game. Yes, it's a Central Division opponent. It's another game that they probably should have won and didn't close it out. So, we've reached the point, and we've had this, this talk a lot in the last while. During the 5-game losing streak, 3 of those games have gone to overtime. Different situations, sometimes coming back, sometimes not holding on. But ultimately, the Jets have lost 5 one-goal games in their last 5 games. And, when you're a team above the playoff line, you find a way to win those. And when you're a team below the playoff line, more often than not, you don't measure up to where you want to be. So, let's see how the Jets respond. We know this is a huge critical stretch for them. Another tough matchup against the Oilers on Monday. And I mean, Scott O'Neill said it. You can't worry about the 30-plus games that came before. You can't, but you've got to learn some of the lessons from those games that have been costing them at times.
So, Ken, you absolutely nail it here, because I can say whatever I want about the hockey gods, and I still do believe there's an element to this where it's just like things are not going the Winnipeg.
Oh, no, I agreed.
You absolutely nailed this, and what you nail is the difference between last year's team and this year's team. What made the Jets so good last year was this unbelievable attention to detail at every moment in the game. And what it used to do is it used to kind of highlight the difference between the Winnipeg Jets and their opposition last year. And so many of these games that were like 3-2 wins by the Winnipeg Jets or 2-1 wins by the Winnipeg Jets would come down to a mistake made or a casualness or a laziness by the opposition that got exposed by the Winnipeg Jets in those moments. And you are picking up on exactly one of the things or many of the things in this game that the Winnipeg Jets simply wouldn't have done last year. There's no advantage to Nino Niederreiter trying to get a jump in that situation. He's out of the play. And all he needs to do in that moment, more than anything else, is ensure that he's not offside. And it's okay for him to be lagging by a step or 2 steps or even 3 steps in that situation, because the role that he's going to fill at that point with Nyquist skating the way that he is to move into the vacuum behind the player and be the trailer, be the second layer of attack in that situation. You don't need to be on time necessarily to a degree to be in that situation. So there's no urgency for him to cross at that point. So Ken, it's a casualness to his game in that moment that ends up costing the Winnipeg Jets. And then you bring it right back to Dylan DeMello in that situation. Now I know this is a coach going to bat for his players. This is a coach pissed off at the officials. I guess we can get into the idea of if this is warranted, because to the point that's being made here, we've seen this a million times in hockey before, and the Jets can be upset that that first call was not called. But the fact of the matter is the first call was not called. They can't control that. You can't control the referee's arm. You can give him heck about it afterwards. You can try and affect it going forward. But in that moment, you have no control over whether the ref's arm goes up in that moment. What you do have control over is whether or not your response to that puts you in a dangerous situation and puts you in a situation where you could end up with a penalty. And that's what Dylan DeMello does. Now, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't think it's fair. And you may be 1,000% right. But we learned this. And I remember being really young in hockey and learning this lesson from a coach who very simply said to me, I went out and a player did something to me and he slashed me. And I looked over and the ref didn't call anything. So I turned and I slashed the player and I walked away with a penalty. And I remember going off and talking to my coach about how unfair it was. And the coach said to me, listen, get over it. In hockey, the second guy will get caught. So either be smart and wait to get your retribution, or suck it up for the betterment of your team. And so in that situation, the response now, I love the idea that Dylan DeMello is not doing it for retribution for himself. Yep. He's doing it to stand up for one of his guys, but in that, and one of their stars. But in that moment, that's one of those things that last year, Ken, I used to talk about the Winnipeg Jets team over and over and over again. They were not the team that would go out and do something to get retribution and end up getting penalized for it. They were the team that took it on the chin, quietly shook their head and kept playing, and went on and got their retribution on the scoreboard. So these, I can say whatever I want again about this team, about the hockey gods, but there's a couple things that happen in this game that last year's Winnipeg Jets would not have done, that end up being key moments, crucial moments, and reasons why the Winnipeg Jets walk away with just 1 point in this game where they desperately needed the 2.
Yeah, for sure. And again, another familiar thing. We both heard it. We both talked about it. We've heard coaches say it. We've heard analysts say it. In that situation, Sean, you got to take a number. That's what you have to do. I mean, you understand standing up for a teammate, all of those things. And yes, it was a dangerous looking play. Eriksson Ek definitely pushed Morrissey from behind into the boards, but it didn't cause an injury. So, Sean, I think, again, and it's easy to say, you know, when you're not on the ice in that moment, and we've both been on the ice in heated moments, obviously not at this level, but you can understand the sequence of events that led to it. But it's not like he got wallpapered and wasn't getting up and then you went to retaliate, right? I mean, that's why in that situation, and again, I understand it's easier for me to say this, but that's just a penalty you can't afford to take in that situation. You know, if you want to call it a weak call, that's fine. And I understand that. And no doubt Scott O'Neill made his feelings known. He thought it was an obvious non-call. He's upset about it. His teammates or his players are upset about it. And, you know, you move on to the next thing. But again, it's something that control the controllables. Both of those plays are examples of, you know, the Jets are going to play the Wild again, and not long from now, in a couple of weeks. If you're angry about it, take a number, find retribution at another time. But at that situation, the Jets couldn't afford to be shorthanded, and, you know, it ended up costing them. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, yes, again, there's an element of luck there too. Quinn Hughes' shot goes off the end boards, but Kaprizov gets there first, and not only does he get to the puck first, he finds an open man on a 6-on-4. Someone's going to be open. Like, really heads up play by a guy. Sean, we talked about this almost every time these two teams play. You didn't notice Kaprizov dominating play, but he's involved in all the key moments again today, right?
Yes.
Important breakaway goal, sets up the tying goal, sets up the winning goal.
I mean, when I talk about the luck involved in this, the pass out front is meant for the guy right in front of the net, who the Winnipeg Jets players are in position to actually maybe stop in that play and get the puck off them and get the puck down, and the game's over, right? It's the fact that it goes through that guy and ends up on the stick of another player that all of a sudden that's the player that the Jets can't get to, and that's the player that has to go. I still say there's like an element of luck involved in all this, but no doubt about it, the pristine roofing call needs to go to the Winnipeg Jets when it comes to the tiny minutia and the details that they were so good of last year. We keep talking about this idea, these 1-goal games, 5 in a row now, of the Winnipeg Jets in these games being on the razor's edge. And last year, it so consistently fell in their favor. This year, it's not falling in their favor. And today's game is a perfect example of why. It's the little tiny things that the Winnipeg Jets did, the details that they always had right time and time again that they're getting wrong, and that deserves the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the one you want down at your place to take a look at all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call, folks. You will be glad that you did. Okay, I wanted to get to something that I saw in this game, Ken. Probably one of the best games we've seen from Nyquist. A really, really great game. And we'll get to the last face-off. Really, really great game. Unbelievable. One of the best games I think Jonathan Toews has played in a really long time. Puts his stamp on that game. I thought Luke Shen was really good in that game. And it got me thinking, of course, you've got, older veterans and so if you want to know what being older in the NHL looks like. I can give you the perfect summary as given to me by Paul Maurice years ago when it came to Blake Wheeler. He'd said, when it comes to older players, you can get the same thing out of older players that you get out of younger players for a long time. Eventually, you age out. Father Time wins all battles. We know that. But when I was asking about Blake Wheeler, when he was still a highly, highly productive player, fairly deep into his career, and it was surprising to see him as such. And his explanation of that was, listen, a lot of these young guys will come in, they'll walk in, they'll do a little bit of a stretch here, a little bit of a stretch there, they'll hop out on the ice, and they'll go do their thing. He said, you don't understand what it looks like behind the scenes to see a player like Blake Wheeler show up an hour and a half, 2 hours earlier than everybody else. And a lot of people think it's because he works harder. It's like, yeah, to a degree, and to a degree, he has to work harder because it takes that extra 2 hours for him to get his body going. Stretches, slow movement, building up into it, taking care of injuries. I always say this: when you're younger, you're like Wolverine, you heal like that. When you get older, I remember, Ken, there being a very specific time in my life where I had something wrong, and I thought, well, this is just my life now. My knee is going to be a problem like this. And it's like, no, when you were young, 3 weeks and it was all healed up. Now it takes 6 months before that thing heals up because you get older and that stuff slows down. So the point I'm getting across is older players sometimes need a little bit of time. And what ends up happening, I think, to some older players in the NHL is that the little nicks and bruises and your body breaking down, sometimes you get old enough to the point that your recovery time is never quite enough to get you back to where you need to be. All NHL players, we know this for the most part, play dinged up, but it's just those little things that keep you going at optimal performance. It takes time for your body to fully recover so that you can go out and be at 100% again. I took a look at this game here tonight, and I saw how good Jonathan Toews played, an older player, how good Luke Shen played, an older player, how good Gus Nyquist played. And I wonder how much of that you think has to do with the fact that 5 days off in a league where, the NHL would play like it was NCAA hockey and they only played on the weekend. Right. I wonder how much better Jonathan Toews, Gus Nyquist, and Luke Shen would look if they had the runway of recovery that they got over these last 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps. I mean, we know what the age of the players are. I mean, mid to late 30s is what we're looking at for these guys. So obviously that time off is going to help. I mean, some people might argue that being off the ice after that age when you're in a rhythm could hurt those players, but I don't see it that way. I think that it's not surprising that they were coming out of the break energized. I mean, you're basically going hard every other night, and there's back-to-backs mixed in there as well. So I think you saw some guys that looked recharged. And the other element too, Sean and Scott O'Neill talked about it again in the morning and going into the break. The ability to spend time, for Luke Shen specifically, two of his kids were in a hockey tournament that he's helping out coaching. And so you got away from the rink. You're not practicing. You're not in the daily grind. But the ability to watch your kids and spend time with family and friends and Luke hosted a few players in town for Christmas dinner and stuff like that. Those sorts of things help get you going. And I mean, Luke knows what's up. He's been around the league a long time. He knows that when he's playing an assertive physical game, that's when he is at his best. And, hasn't been at his best as often as he probably would have liked in the first 35 games. That's not news, but he's also knows what it takes to get out of sort of those types of ruts. So, I mean, for Toews, for sure. I mean, Sean, we've talked about this a lot, and it's not about excuses, but Jonathan hasn't had the grind of an NHL schedule for almost 3 years, and he certainly hasn't had the grind in an Olympic year. So it's been hard on his body. There's no doubt about it. But, he went home, got recharged, and came out and made an impact on the game. I mean, I'm not trying to overanalyze or give too much credit, but I mean, his job in that situation with 5.1 seconds left is to win the draw. He won the draw. Mark Scheifele scored. Jonathan snaps an 11 game point streak, pointless drought. Sorry. It's just a second point in 20 games. Of course he wants to be productive. So, I think it's a step in the right direction for him. And Gus Nyquist, Sean, we know this. I mean, he's frustrated by what's been going on. Didn't score in the playoffs for the Wild, hasn't scored now in 27 games. When you put together a highlight reel maneuver like that, it's got to be devastating. But he didn't just shrivel up and go into the corner and say, woe is me, boo-hoo, I'm not going to score again. In the next period, he had another great scoring chance. And Sean, it's not just that he rattled the puck off the post. Like the sequence of events, he sees the screen in front, he waits, makes a near perfect shot that rattles off the bar. So, hey, again, we understand it doesn't go in and you don't get points for hitting the post. You're not playing posts on the outdoor rink, but it's the sequence of events and the thinking and the confidence to look for the lane, find it. And again, you get that shot enough times in the next little while, you're not going 27 more without scoring. But again, it's baby steps, and those guys got to continue to stack games. And again, it's going to be a grind up into the Olympic break. We know this, but having the ability to get a reset, whether you're those three veterans or whether you're Cole Perfetti trying to get yourself back from an injury, whether you're Adam Lowry, that break is beneficial for those guys. And Sean, it's also beneficial for a top line that's played a ton and had another dominant showing today.
I want to get into, we're going to get into the Jonathan Toews taking that draw. First, I wanted to just bring a couple things into here, which I'm going to say are the flame and comfort hot takes, the good kind of hot takes on this day. Dr. Sad W talks about load management. Bardot talks about maybe Toews needed that 5-day rest. They should rest him more often, both along the same lines here. It's got me thinking about this now, Ken, because if you take a look at Gus Nyquist and how he's bounced back tonight, his best game of the year comes off a 5-game rest. Him being pulled out of the lineup and sat before kind of led to him starting to find the best version of himself, although he didn't find it right away. But I'm starting to wonder, Luke Schenn getting pulled in and out of the lineup. I'm starting to wonder how much load management in those situations. Now, the one thing I've said about this in the past is people keep saying, well, if you need speed, go down, grab guys from the farm. And the one thing I've said to a lot of the people who have that conversation is fast legs are one thing, fast decision-making is another. And a lot of players need to come up to the NHL and need a year, 2 years, 3 years to start understanding how to play a system, do those things right. So you can be fast of foot and not fast of decision-making. So it doesn't necessarily work, but I'm intrigued by what I saw from Jonathan Toews here on this night and what we've seen from Gus Nyquist and what we've seen with the load management style that we've seen from Luke Schenn, to the point that I wonder if there should be call-ups just to plug guys in every once in a while to try and manage the minutes of and get the very best version out of some of those players. I know coming up here, there's going to be the Olympic break. So maybe that's a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets once they get through this stretch here. Maybe that means as they head into a grind of a schedule in March, they'll get arrested, maybe better version of Nyquist and Jonathan Toews and Luke Schenn and players like that. Either way, I think the idea is fascinating, worth the Jets looking into, and definitely worth the flame and comfort hot takes of the day here of this podcast. And of course, those two are both your hot takes. Brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. When you get down there, you're going to see, mark my words, it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Okay, Ken, a whole bunch of comments here about that last draw not being taken by Jonathan Toews. Behind the scenes, my buddy Dwighty, who is the coaching the #1 team in the Canadian Junior A this year, a former pro hockey playing second cousin of mine, reached out to me about it. Both were extremely upset about Jonathan Toews not being out taking that draw. What's your take on it? You think a mistake was made here?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, if it's as simple as you're guaranteed that Toews is going to win the draw because he's 10-3 on the night, and you get the draw back and the puck gets cleared and Jonathan goes to the bench and is replaced by Morgan Barron, who is generally first over the boards in penalty killing situations, then sure, it's a mistake. But the issue is that Jonathan currently hasn't been involved. He has done it in the past, but he hasn't really been involved with the penalty kill this year. Earlier on in the season, he was going out for some draws, then going off quickly. We've talked about how, when he's been on the ice for longer stretches of time or at the end of shifts, sometimes he can run out of steam. So, you've got 30 seconds in the game. I'm not saying that Jonathan can't finish the game if he gets caught on the ice in a 6-on-4. I'm not saying that at all. But again, if you're not involved in something on a regular rotation, I understand why that's not your first instinct. But when Jonathan went out, like we just talked about, he went out for the situation in the offensive zone. I think you can be confident that at worst he's going to get a draw out of it, right? It's going to be even play, and then you rely on your winger or defenseman to be on it. Jonathan's going to get a tie-up at worst. So, with that in mind, yes. Adam Lowry also had a great night in the circle too, I think, Sean. Let's double check here. Lowry, 11 wins, 5 losses, so 69%. Taves was 77%. Morgan Barron only 1 for 6. So, but again, the numbers are what they are, and you're looking at a bigger book than just what's happening in that game. Barron's been good on defensive zone draws at various times, so I can understand why that's your first inclination as the head coach. But yeah, in this situation, it's easy to first guess or second guess and say, well, in that situation, put it your best face-off man. But I think that it we've seen this before. Losing the draw was impactful because the Wild got possession. But to your point, Sean, the coverage is more of an issue than losing the draw itself. Again, and there's all kinds of plays that led up to it, and maybe the Jets had an opportunity for empty netters and all those other things. But I can understand both sides of the coin here. And again, I'm not trying to sit on the fence, but the facts are that Jonathan hasn't been asked to protect a ton of leads in the first 36 games. So if he goes out and loses the draw and the goal gets scored, all these people that are mad at Barron are mad at Taves. Why was Taves out there? They would be saying, oh, he's got the worst plus minus on the team. Why is he out there? So anyways, to me, it's as much coverage as it was losing the draw, but at the same time, losing the draw impacted the goal being scored. And that's a fact also. What about you? What do you think?
Well, I've got a very definitive response to this. I'm not going to sit on the fence on this. I'm not accusing you of sitting on the fence by any means, Ken. But
I'm just trying to explain both sides.
Yes, I get it. I very definitively think that the right choice was made here. Now, I'm gonna do something really quick here because if people remember the Patriots beating the Seahawks on that goal line play where everyone had said, hand it off to the beast, run the ball. They totally screwed that up. It's on first down, all this kind of stuff. And people time and time again, I think this is one of these situations where you run into this hindsight's 2020. And of course you do this. Of course you hand off the ball to Marshawn Lynch on the 2-yard line. Of course you give it to the guy who's won 10 of 13 faceoff throughout that evening. It's obvious. This is so ridiculous. So when you're looking from the benefit of hindsight, one of the things that you don't look at in that Marshawn Lynch situation where everyone says it's just an obvious situation is Marshawn Lynch in that year, earlier that year, had been handed off the ball in similar situations 5 times. Twice he'd lost yardage, twice he'd gone nowhere, and once he'd scored on that play. So in that situation, when the defense knew that Marshawn Lynch was going to be running that ball, they stopped him 80% of the time. In that situation, if you are going to throw the ball, what you are trying to do is you're trying to throw it in a situation where you're going to catch the defense off guard. And they did. The Patriots wholesale sold on stopping Marshawn Lynch. They fake the handoff and they throw the ball. And it's a touchdown. If I believe it's Darrell Revis.
Malcolm
Butler makes okay. If Malcolm Butler does not make and go back and watch it over and over and over again, it's a play where it's designed to get him caught up in cross coverage. There should be no possibility of him getting that ball, and he gets it out of or out of just freak athletic excellence. doesn't even jump the route, gets caught up in the cross and still finds a way to get across and makes, in my opinion, one of, if not the most amazing interceptions in NFL history. So they catch them by surprise. They get the matchup that they want. They get the ball. The only problem that is made in that situation is Russell Wilson throws that ball, and rather than leading the runner, he throws it to his back shoulder, which even it takes one of the greatest interceptions of all time for that play to be turned over. But there's not a possibility of that being turned over if the quarterback does what he's supposed to do in that situation. Now, people, I give them that whole explanation of the reasons why it's made, and they still turn around and they say, it's the beast, hand off the ball 4 times and blah, blah, blah. Well, if he runs and he goes for and he loses yardage, which 40% of the time during the season he had done, now things get tougher. Now the advantage starts to switch towards the defense, and things turn around in this situation here. So it's easy for people to just say, hand it off and it would have been a touchdown and it's all over. It's not that easy. This to me is one of those situations, because what we've seen, and you touched on it, Ken, Jonathan Toews, I've talked about it on this podcast. How many times has he got caught in his own end where he gets behind the play and then he's chasing the entire time, right? Now, if you send him out and it's a 6-on-4, there's that much more time, there's that much more distance those players have to cover it. And Jonathan Toews is simply, obviously, Jonathan Toews is not the guy you want on the ice in that situation if he loses the draw. Now, a whole bunch of you are going to say, well, hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch. He was going to punch it in regardless. Give the draw to Jonathan Toews. He's going to win it regardless. That's all fine and dandy, but if he doesn't win that draw and the puck comes back out and they get scored on and Jonathan Toews doesn't look like he's covering up, because Jonathan Toews is not one of the Jets' better penalty killers and not one of the players who's more capable of making his way around the ice. Everyone in this chat room would be lambasting Scott Arniel for putting a slow guy out on the ice. Who does he have to give the prime opportunity to? Only the guy who's one of the fastest players on the Winnipeg Jets. Only the guy who's been like an absolute demon when it comes to penalty killing. Only the guy who's strong and wins puck battles when there's an empty net on the other end of the ice and has the speed to get himself in the open and is probably, outside of Kyle Connor or Mike Scheifele, your most likely candidate on the team to score the goal that makes this a 2-goal game and this game is over. This is the right decision made by Scott Arniel. Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe the feeling is you go with the hot hand, the logical thing and I'm not saying that you don't put Jonathan Toews out there, and this is what my buddy Dwighty said to me. Put Jonathan Toews out there, he wins the draw, ice the puck, and then get him off the ice, and then you don't have to worry about it. But that is still all predicated on the idea that he wins the draw. Our chances are that he was going to win the draw, yes. But if he doesn't win the draw, now you are down one player. They've got an extra player out there. It's bordering on a 6-on-3.5 to a 6-on-3 in that situation. As a coach, that's not managing the situation properly. You may not like it at home. You may disagree with me. Gooberd ED says, Renny, you're wrong, Renny. Go to bed. I'd like to hear your explanation and see if you can make any sense of it other than, oh, he's good at taking draws. This is the right play by Scott Arniel. He made the right situation here. You can take your hindsight and cram it somewhere else, because in this situation, a coach has to coach the right way, and this was coached in the right way in this situation. Didn't turn out for the Winnipeg Jets, but he gave them the best opportunity for it to work out in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's easy to debate and
this, I completely disagree with this. Both options led to a high chance of a loss. Why is putting Morgan Barron out, who has been before this, our chat room has been filled with people talking about play Morgan Barron more, and he's such a beast.
Put him on the second line.
And that. Like, this to me is just peak, because no one here is making any sense other than just saying you're wrong. This is just peak. Hindsight is 2020, and we know more than an NHL coach because Jonathan Toews was winning draws tonight. he doesn't win that draw, they're in a bad situation. He's getting lambasted, and to be honest, rightfully so. He's getting lambasted. Regardless, it didn't work out for the Winnipeg Jets. They ended up getting scored on. I know you're not happy about that. I know a lot of you aren't happy about that. Maybe you'd be happier if you could score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game while you focus on home sweet home. Our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.nb.ca/rates for more. Ken, the most compelling argument I saw out of our chat room was that Sweet Lou Ferlin would have put JT in to take the face off. Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're at it?
No doubt. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Ken, any okay, I just wanted to
classic. This is a blast from the past here.
Blast from the past, yes. I'm going to cruise this to see if anyone came together with a coherent argument about why Jonathan Toews should have been in, other than he was doing well on the drafts here tonight. I'm going to take some time to read this, Ken. In the meantime, I just wanted you to make sure that you gave your flowers and the cookies to the top line that looked like they'd won this game here, and maybe touch on the idea that, it's Scott O'Neill or sorry, it was Rick Bowness who used to talk about, hey, we lost this game not because we didn't hold the lead, but because we didn't go get that next goal. Some depth scoring would have helped in that night. Can you just touch on the lack of depth scoring once again and the top line almost winning it for them?
For sure. Just another impressive showing by the top trio of the Jets. Mark Scheifele, 1-1 for 2. He had 5 shots on goal, 9 shot attempts, 2 hits, 50% in the circle. Kyle Connor, 1-1 for 2. 24 shifts for 21-01, 2 shots on goal. Gabe Velarde, another 2 helpers, 2 shots on goal, 6 shot attempts, 2 block shots. And, he was over 20, just under 21 minutes as well. And again, and I understand, and we've seen it in some of the chat as well. I mean, it's easy to say, well, put Connor on his own line because he can drive the line, but the Jets aren't getting enough from the guys down the middle to ensure that that's going to be the case. Now, I get it. You can say you want to try it because you haven't seen it for a while. And maybe Kyle Connor can help get Cole Perfetti going, because Kyle is a guy that played with Cole when Pierre-Luc Dubois was here for different periods of time. That's true. But it's been a while, and Cole isn't playing at that same level, so it's not an automatic. And again, the Jets have a bunch of guys that have performed at this level for a long time, for a long stretch of their careers, and a bunch of them all went ice cold at the exact same time. Now, it's incumbent upon those players to get themselves going, but right now the top line, I mean, again, this is totally different circumstance than last year, at the start of last year, when some folks were also calling for the top line to be broken up, only to watch them become one of the best top lines in the NHL for a 71 game period. But again, they're doing their job. And Sean, you asked Kyle Connor this morning, do they feel like they've done enough? And Kyle Connor was quick to respond, even though they're performing and producing, they feel like they can do more, whether that's produce more themselves, bury more chances, be better leaders, all sorts of things. So to me, top line did its job, and there's a bunch of guys that need to elevate their play, and we saw strides being taken by some guys, but there's still too many guys that have not been able to produce offense for. I mean, again, we're talking about between 10 and 24 games now for a big stretch of people. So it's a tough time for a lot of guys, but again, I feel like they're showing the right attitude, and we saw with chances being created, but there's a bunch of guys that haven't performed up to their own standard, and they're going to have to raise their standard. That's the only way that the Jets are going to, pull themselves back into a situation where they're, in a position to battle for, that second wild card spot.
Ken, I've looked through here, and every single person's argument about Jonathan Toews being out in that situation has no backup plan. Their plan is he wins the draw, and that's it. And if he loses, they don't want to get into that. They just want to say, play the percentages. So this is it. It's all
I can help
or nothing in this situation. Jonathan Toews goes out there and he wins the draw. No one wants to think about the idea of what happens if the guy who's been struggling to keep up with the pace of play loses that draw. There's nothing here other than people I think he would have won the draw. That's the best argument I've seen so far. You got something to say?
Just quickly, just to wrap up this whole thing. And Scott O'Neill mentioned this on one of the broadcasts with Paul Edmonds, one of the pregame shows. This was not a strong side draw for Toews. It would have been a weak side draw, and Morgan Barron has had success on his weak side over the course of the season. That's one of the explanations that Scott delivered on a different broadcast, which is, again, I assume it's wide factored into the decision. It wasn't just Scott O'Neill having a gut decision saying, hey, put Barron out there, whatever side it's on. I think this is coming with, statistical evidence that would have been used. So
the hindsight 2020 monster is just working full time here. This guy says, Mike McDonald says, what happens if Barron loses the draw? Like, I get it. They scored in this situation, but if Barron loses the draw, you've got your fastest and number one penalty killer out on the ice killing a penalty versus a guy who doesn't kill penalties. Like, I don't know how much more clearly to say this. Listen, if he wins the draw, you're all right. If he loses the draw, all of you are sitting here complaining about the idea that one of the Jets' slowest players is out killing the penalty at the most crucial point of the game. I don't know what to say this other than if you head over to the folks at Myers Drugs, they will think through the problem all the way around. They won't just stop and say, well, he'll win the draw. They'll go and do the whole thing and cover you all the way around the city, folks. So go give Myers Drugs, the folks at Myers Drugs, a chance if you have any pharmaceutical needs, any supplemental needs, any health food needs. And as you know, they will deliver anywhere in the city, have it covered off from north to south, east to west. Ken, we have to, before we move to the awards, we have to talk about Connor Hellebuyck. Now, did I forget to star this? I did, which is absolutely terrible. No, I brought it up. Transcona Pauly, who is totally on the other side with the JT thing than I am, but I'm 100% with him on that tonight, is how deep Connor Hellebuyck played in his net now on that breakaway goal. And here's one of these nights where I won't even get into the people who are saying all the stuff about Eric Comrie, but the bounce back that we were supposed to see this team have when it came to Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuck's first game and his best game was a game where he had 2 shots against him in the first period, and his team just went out and kicked butt and won a game. That kind of happened on this night. Connor Hellebuyck ends up allowing 4 goals and ends up with a 7-8 something save percentage in this. Yep. I could bring up the text. I won't, but I get the first goal. It's a tip in tight, in front, gets back Connor Hellebuyck. I don't blame him, or gets behind Connor Hellebuyck. I don't blame him on that goal. The second one's a breakaway. Breakaways are going to happen. They're going to go in. It's a high danger scoring chance. What I don't like about that, and what I texted Ken in the moment, was why is he so deep in his net in that situation? By the time Kaprizov makes the move on that play, he's got the entire side of the net, because once he makes the move on Connor Hellebuyck, he's so deep in his net. And then I thought on the tying goal, he found himself very deep in that. Now, it's a low to high play. I just don't know. We've praised Connor Hellebuyck in the past about fighting his way out to the shot. I didn't really see that there. And then he's beaten the slot on the final at the end of the game. I don't look at this game and think Connor Hellebuyck played terribly. I think it's one of those games where, the number ends up being the number. But again, when we got to where we did with Eric Comrie about the numbers he was putting up, we said, I don't think he's the problem, but he definitely hasn't been the solution. Connor Hellebuyck has not been the solution for the Winnipeg Jets since he's come back. The numbers show that, I think, now after this game, now that he's been back for, 5-6 games. Sorry. Yes. 6 games
This
now.
was a 6
He'll
straight start.
he'll have below a 900 save percentage. The Winnipeg Jets came out and got him a point back in that Utah game by fighting their way back in. I mean, to me, this is a Winnipeg Jets getting him to where they got him to in this game. He wasn't really tested. There is no doubt who won the Renny Award, the Sean Reynolds Award in this one. Jesper Wallstedt was the better of the two goaltenders. Ken, just your thoughts on where Connor Hellebuyck is right now? Is it good enough? Is he not meeting the standard that we expect of Connor Hellebuyck? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time for sure. I mean, the high danger chances were tilted heavily towards Minnesota. You know, again, we don't love expected goals, but I mean, the expected goals for the Wild were 2.83 and the Wild scored 4. So, I mean, that would say that it wasn't a prototypical goal saved above expected game for Hellebuyck. You know, again, I don't think he cost them the game by any stretch, but it hasn't been overwhelmingly automatic that Hellebuyck has come out and, you know, we talked about it before. I mean, yes, the Jets play a more confident game, or they have certainly since Hellebuyck's been back, but it hasn't eliminated a lot of the mistakes that were happening when he was out of the lineup. So, and again, the Jets are, you know, they're not able to outscore their mistakes. And, you know, Hellebuyck hasn't been superhuman making 40, 50 saves. I mean, he hasn't been asked to all of those times, but yeah, I mean, I think that Hellebuyck is playing, you know, above average, but right now, you know, I think he's still working his way back from an injury. So I think it was going to take some time. And I think that he can play better. I think the team can play better in front of him. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been automatic. Hellebuyck's back. The Jets are going to go on a 10-game winning streak. I think if the Jets do happen to go on a winning streak, Connor Hellebuyck will play a big role in that. But again, I don't think he's at fault, but he's also not, you know, just automatically helping them win these games either. So I think that, you know, there's, like you said, in this game, he was the second best goalie. I mean, that's not really up for debate, right? I mean, that's what it was.
I don't think, not at all.
Wallstedt, I mean, you know, Wallstedt gave up 3. Yeah. But I mean, Wallsted's a rookie who's only had 15 starts this year. So he's been playing great. So we know the Wild have great goaltending, a great goaltending tandem, probably the best in the league. So, you know, some nights that means you got to make an extra save. So, I mean, to your point about Hellebuyck, he often plays deep in the net, but he certainly wasn't aggressive on that play. And Kaprizov made a great move to the backhand. But yeah, I mean, and even on the Boldy goal, it's a great chance for sure. But I mean, at the other end of the ice, Sean, Wallstedt made a stop on a high danger one-timer from Mark Scheifele, literally 10 seconds before the goal was scored. Yes. And not only that, Wallstedt had the presence of mind to not roll the dice on a face-off. He dropped the puck immediately, and the Wild went on the attack.
Yes.
At a time when often goalies in that situation squeeze the puck, take their chances. The Wild are a really good face-off team. They would have sent Eriksson Ek over the boards and then seen what happens. Yeah. Instead, the Wild attacked with 3 skilled players and went out and created a 2-on-1 and made a tic-tac-toe play, and it ended up in the back of the Jets net. So, I mean, that's great execution from a team that, Sean, they were 3-9-2 when the Jets played them in October. Now they're running away with third in the Central Division. And here's the wild thing about the Central. The Central have the top 3 teams in the NHL. The Wild might finish third and have to go on the road for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs and have to face the Dallas Stars. Now, that's not much of a reward. Anyways, that's a different topic altogether.
You were right. That is the wild thing about the Central. I see what you did there. Before we hand out the awards, I got to bring this one up by T. Will, who says, Renny is all about the stats and percentages, talking about the Seattle play, but abandons the stats and percentages when it disagrees with his Taze take. That's so Renny, it's hurt. T. Will is so practiced in comparing apples and oranges. That guy misses true calling in opening up a fruit stand. It's just his calling card over and over again. Anyways, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got, Kenny?
Well, there weren't a lot of defensive efforts, so this is a little bit of obscure reference, but I'm gonna go with Jonathan Toews had Scott Arniel covered. Jonathan Toews was sent out with 5.1 seconds to go in the second period. It was a clean draw, but a second effort draw. Jonathan Toews tied up the stick, knocked it back to Mark Scheifele. Scheifele has the internal clock in his head running. 5, 4, 3, cuts to the middle perfectly, doesn't rush, makes a perfect shot after a one draw. Again, simple job, win a draw, go out and win it. Taves won it. Scheifele buries it. That's what I'm going to go. It's kind of an unheralded play. Yes, he gets a point, but the goal doesn't happen without winning the draw in that situation.
I just got to say, it felt, and it's part of the thing that led to the rant at the beginning about the hockey gods. It just felt like that goal reminded me of the goal against, was it the Wild?
Yeah,
or
it was.
the
Yes,
Chicago
yes.
Blackhawks,
No,
where they scored with like 3 seconds left on the clock. It
Yep.
just kind of
Pulled the
felt like,
goalie.
okay, these
Lowry
things
won the
that
draw
happened last year are
to
happening again
Scheifele.
this year. Here he comes. Anyways, Tracy O has a great one here. She says it has to be Sandberg on the heli
That was a
giveaway.
good one
Now,
too.
the puck never gets there, but Sandberg slides in front there, and is it Sturm who
It
gets
was
the
Sturm. Yes,
opportunity
Nico
with the puck?
Sturm. Yes,
What I see in that situation is a guy knowing that that big body of Sandberg is sliding to get to the front of the net, and he's rushing to get the puck up to his stick so that he can get it into the empty net before half the net is taken away by Dylan Sandberg. I think it's
call
him
there.
rushing him on the play that creates that not being a good old Connor Hellebuck giveaway that ends up in the back of the net at one of the most crucial times. So that's a good one by Tracy O. A great example for the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. Absolutely. Yeah, she nailed it. I thought she absolutely nailed it. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that brings us to our hashtag the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Oh boy. Let's.
I'm going to go with
You
what
got
you
it,
were
you-
talking about, the one timer on Scheifele.
Oh yeah, sure.
Or the
Wallstead.
Scheifele one timer in overtime. I thought that was going in the back of the net. It had the feel of like a Mark Scheifele night.
For sure.
And I just felt it was one of those situations where the response by Wallstead in that, like, it feels to me, and there's lots to be proven here. It feels to me like Wallstead's the real deal. Like, yes, he's having a good start to the season, but in that moment, it's not a young player looking scrambly. And that's what I'll see sometimes. Like, you know, even in young players game, even at times with Connor Bedard over the first couple of years, you'll see the things that make him really good. And then you'll see a little bit of the scrambliness to be like, he's still got a ways to go. Right. I saw that with Connor Bedard playing the Winnipeg Jets earlier this year. Jesper Wallstedt in that moment looks to me like a guy who's like, it's not happening. I don't care if you're Mark Scheifele. I don't care if you have 2 points tonight. I don't care if you're top 10 in the NHL in scoring. I don't care if you're on a heater. I'm not letting this game go. And then to your point, the presence of mind to get it, set the puck down, and basically start putting the Winnipeg Jets on their heels in that moment is a really, really key moment. And again, you're talking about a young player who went into this game first in shutouts, first in goals against, and second in save percentage, numbers akin to what we saw from Connor Hellebuck last year. Now, I know he hasn't played anywhere near as many games. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but what I am saying is that guy went in and played that guy on the other side of the ice tonight as a rookie who's doing what he's doing and outdid the reigning Hart Trophy winner. That was a heck of a save, I thought. Do you have anything different?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's the save maybe wasn't quite as impressive, but when Kyle Connor went with the 3-foot backhand sauce to Scheifele in the slot there, Wallstedt had to be pretty sharp on that exchange as well. But
yeah,
I like your choice because the presence of mind element also.
Yes, which you're the one who pointed out. Regardless, that's Ken's. Excuse me. Ken's and my hashtag the keg saves of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Linda Trudeau. Linda, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, folks, we just hope you had a happy holiday season here. We did at our household. I think you did as well, Sean. And just a big thank you. I mean, this is a season of gratitude. We try to express it not just during the holiday season, but A couple shows ago, the Kenny and Renny show eclipsed 705,000
Yeah.
downloads for our history here.
And that's just for the podcast.
That's just
that doesn't
podcast
include
only, yes.
YouTube views.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's that can't happen without our great band of listeners, and it's been awesome to see the support and the community that's been growing, and we love that you join us, and it's been impressive to see the numbers this year as well, even though we know things have not gone as smoothly for the Jetsons here.
Yes, I agree on all fronts. It was a great Christmas for you, Ken. It was great to see that it was for you. We're so appreciative and thankful for our audience and all the people who keep tuning in. Those 700,000 downloads, all the YouTube views, all the Facebook views, all the other stuff on top of that. If I have a gift to give, it's that if you're going to come with a debate on a night like tonight and your only debate is, well, he would have won the draw, you have to have a backup plan, folks. It's the way it goes. An NHL coach doesn't have the luxury of saying, well, I think he's going to win the draw. And what happens if he doesn't win the draw? Well, I don't have a plan for that because I think he's going to win the draw. Come on. You could do better than that, folks. That's my gift to you, is the gift of motivation for you to come with a better argument than that. That's it for Kenny and I. We're going to do this all over again on Monday when the Winnipeg Jets take on the Edmonton Oilers. Just another crucial game for a team that needs to get things going and seems to be stuck in neutral as it is right now. We will get ready to do that all over again. But before we go, if you do appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would implore you to appreciate the contribution made by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's get back together and do this all over again on Monday. Bye-bye.